Good evening, guys. First of all, a disclosure that I did not actually go to Budapest. I will explain later about the title. Sorry for any confusion there. Other exciting things. First, I'm wearing my Mongol shirt. Second, possibly more exciting thing is people recognize my Mongol shirt for like Crash Course, which is awesome because I am a die-hard John and Hank Green lover. And that all stemmed from watching a Crash Course video of history, and then I binge watched the entire Crash Course history series, and it was great. And the Mongols are the exception. Okay, moving on. A throwback to when I used to cut to random pillow pets for the moving on. That was nice. So, other things that happened today. I finished, with the help of my mother, my application for SSTP, which is a training program over the summer, which would be excellent and good for applications and stuff. Second, I got a letter from someone who's actually very important to me. As far as people who know me and understand, my various teenage angsts, this person is way up there, and I truly and selfishly mean them the best. Because the person who sent me a letter was Scott Malloy. Last summer, I went to a program called Hobie. It's Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership. So that was a weekend. It was like June 12th to June 14th. And it was just a leadership thing. And they gathered sophomores from across the state, and we did weird cheers and did volunteer work and did not get sleep. Okay, that's not true. We got a little sleep, but I was a little bit loopy. And so on the last morning, before our big banquet and fancy send-off, they had us, sit down and write letters to ourselves in the future. And so that's what I did. And I could tell that I was tired because my handwriting, which is normally bad, was especially bad there, and my spelling, which is typically pretty bad, was also especially terrible. The point is, it was a really good letter to get. One of the biggest problems I have in life when I'm having some doldrums, and I think it's fairly universal, is I don't have anything to kick me off to get started again. Last year, before NSLC, I was not in a great place as far as being productive or being happy for that matter. And going and doing that really set me in the right direction. Same thing happened with Hobie and Future Docs, and basically any of these programs where I go and meet cool and interesting people and learn new things, It's hard. There are just a couple times a year where you really feel like this is the day that something's going to change. For some people, that's New Year's resolution. For some people, that's their birthday. For some people, that might be when someone agrees to date them or when someone breaks up with them for a stupid reason. It doesn't matter. The point is, for a lot of people, I think, I know for me especially, there needs to be something special about a day or an event in order to prompt good change. So, and that was something that was really hard for me for a long time. Like, I couldn't fix my habits and start being a more productive person unless I had something to prompt that. And it's seriously a pain in the butt. I don't like it. I wish that I could change my life for the better every day without fail, And it's just not true. And that's something that Letter Me very much understood. So that morning, I basically said, Scott, this is your prompting to make a change for the better. So anyway, reading over my letter, that's essentially what it said. Also, it reminded me of the one big thing that I got out of Hobie. And that's that, typically the worst thing that comes from failure, at least in our lifetimes, is that you're back where you started again. In my letter, I recounted a few things wherein I wasn't successful, and I followed it with a dash and a big frickin' deal, And that's a really hard thing to wrap your mind around. I'm used to being good at things. I'm used to being successful, and it really sucks when I'm not, And it's really important for me, and probably everyone else, is that it doesn't matter, Success is not linear. It's, failure here, failure here, failure here, failure here, failure here, success. I said linear, I guess I probably meant binary. So that's an incredibly important thing. And I need to keep trying to work on that. I will save my other corny mottos for my programs from another time. That said, at the very end of my story, sorry, my letter, it says, "Don't be afraid to wake up in Budapest." So that's in reference to a story. We had a speaker on like our second day at Hobie, and it was this guy who was famous just because he went through like 40 countries or something within 4 years. Or maybe it was more than that. And it's just about how he quit his job and spent some time working in places and just making just enough money to get by so that he could see more of the world. Like he worked for a sweatshop in Taiwan and washed a lot of dishes, and he just went different places. And one of the stories he told us was about how he was in this is going to take more editing than I thought. Schneitz, that's not right. Amsterdam! Alright, so one of the stories he tells us about when he's in Amsterdam is he's at this party one night, and he meets this girl who's just gorgeous, right? He really talks up about how she's just this gorgeous blonde girl, right? It's more to the story. And, they really hit it off, and they're talking about things, and they both sort of travel around and do whatever. And she says, I'm leaving for Paris tonight. You should meet me there. And he says, well, I got this thing in the morning. He had some meeting or he was meeting with friends. Yeah, he was meeting with friends the next morning, someone who he'd met in some other country because he's roaming around doing all this stuff. And he's like, but after that, I will get on the first train to Paris and I will meet you there. And he's just so excited about this because he's thinking Paris, the city of love, right? With all the candles and the fancy music and this really, really pretty blonde girl, okay? So he's super jazzed about that, and he goes back to his hotel room that night and, sleeps and whatnot, and he gets up, and this meeting with his friends or whatever goes long. There are complications, and he already got his ticket. He prepaid it because he's smart for his ticket to Paris on the train. Anyway, he rushes out, and he's trying to get a cab, and he can't get a cab for the life of him, and when he finally does, there's like a communication barrier because he's not bilingual, and he's in Amsterdam. So eventually they do get to the train station, and he's like trying to figure out where his terminal is at because nothing is in English as the primary language, and he's shuffling through. And eventually he makes it on the train, and he just barely makes it past the turnstile before the thing leaves, and he's like super relieved, and he just like falls down the floor of the train. He's like, thank God, he made it. About 10 minutes in, you hear another language of something going on. The conductor's talking over the intercom in some other language, and eventually they get to the part where they get to English, and they're like, train number, yada, 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 en route to Budapest. Ed Paul is just like, oh dear goodness, no. And so he starts thinking, how can he get off this train and get to Paris and the pretty, pretty girl and the candles and the fancy music? And he just sighs and realizes that there's no way. Then he realizes that, he might as well just be along for the ride. So even though he didn't see this blonde girl again or go to Paris, he took the train to Budapest, and he woke up, and he had a great time there, and he just enjoyed the story that life had for him to play out there. And he was happy with that. Even if, it would have made a whole lot of sense if he hadn't been. So yeah, the moral of the story here is don't be afraid to wake up in Budapest. All the best, guys. I could get an M+M! What's it called? Copyright infringement! Lots of M+Ms. Probably makes up for the ones that I didn't eat earlier. All the best.